Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So today's video, I'm going to focus on how to blend your eyeshadows to where they don't look super muddy. Now this is actually a question from my previous tutorial. I did ask you guys to leave me some questions so I can focus on those in makeup tutorials. But then I sat down to film a tutorial and I got on the point where I wanted to talk about the muddy eyeshadows and realized that I should just do a whole video on just that, because if I stick it in a makeup tutorial, it end up being super long. So I'm just going to focus on that in this one video so you guys can kind of always have this video to come back to if you need help with blending your eyeshadows. The first thing that may be happening, the reason why your eyeshadows are a bit harder to blend, is your base. So a base is something that you apply on your eyelids to make your eyeshadows blend a lot nicer. But one thing that eyeshadow bases don't tell you to do is to set it. Typically when you get an eyeshadow primer, they kind of make it seem like you can apply that, let it dry, and blend on top. Well, a lot of times that is not foolproof. When you have an eyeshadow base, you want to make sure that you set it with a setting powder. Setting powders are like the #1 product that you should have in your makeup collection, no matter what your skin type is. If you're dry, combination, oily, if you have skin, you need to have a setting powder because it saves the day on a lot of different issues that people have with makeup. So you want to take your setting powder after you use your eyeshadow base. If you're using the Urban Decay eyeshadow primer potion, or if you're using your concealer, or if you're using your foundation for the day, you want to make sure that you apply something to your eyelids and set it with a setting powder. Okay, so you guys are a bit closer so you can see what I'm doing. This eye right here, I'm going to be doing the right way, and then this eye is the wrong way. So I'm going in with a little bit of my foundation to cover up my eyelids. I actually prefer to use foundations or concealers because you don't have to buy an additional product and it works the exact same. This is going to conceal my veins that I have. You can see I have veins on my eyelid. On here, you don't see the veins because I've covered them up with foundation, and that way the eyeshadows will look a lot nicer on top. And then I'm also going to set this eye with the banana powder, but you can use, whatever setting powder. You just want to make sure that you set. Okay, and for this eye, the one that's not going to be right, I'm going to apply a bit of a stickier foundation that has more of a radiant finish, which is the Cojundo Aqua foundation. And this kind of is going to mimic if you have oily eyelids as well, because I'm not going to set this. So if you apply a shadow and your eyelids look anything like this, like shiny, it's going to perform the same way as it is me applying this radiant foundation. You get what I'm saying? So far, the first things that you want to make sure that you do is apply an eyeshadow base and set it with a setting powder. This, I applied the eyeshadow base and I'm not setting it, or it's going to mimic I didn't apply eyeshadow base at all and my eyelids are a bit oily. So that's what we have so far. So the second thing that you could be doing wrong is the type of eyeshadow that you're using. So with eyeshadows, you have either a neutral undertone, a warm undertone, or a cool undertone. Most shadows from the drugstore, I hate to pick on the drugstore, but most shadows from the drugstore do have that cool tone feature. Now they do have warm tone eyeshadows, but if you're new to buying makeup, you may have purchased a cool tone palette, and that may be the reason why that your eyeshadows aren't blending right, or they look a bit muddy when you do blend them. So I would recommend that you buy an eyeshadow palette that is more neutral or warm tone, and that's in general. Whether you want to shop at Sephora or the drugstore, you want to make sure that you're looking for warm tone versus cool tone palettes. So just a few examples of some eyeshadow palettes that have more warmer undertones. The first one is the Anastasia Beverly Hills Modern Renaissance palette. You have these shadows over here that you can use as a warm transition color. You have this shadow that has more, that's orange, and these pinks you can use in your crease, and they're very warm and you won't get that muddy look with those. Another palette, this one is pretty obvious. The Urban Decay Naked Heat palette has nothing but warm eyeshadows. You won't have a problem with getting a muddy look with these. My Sigma Warm Neutrals palette, warm is in the name of the palette. You have warm eyeshadows in this palette, so you don't have to worry about the muddy look, but you will if you only use use this shadow and you use too much of it, then you may get a muddy look. Now, as far as cool tone shadows that can automatically give you that muddy look, be the first, I think this is the first one. Yeah, the first Tartelette palette. It's pretty much a cool tone palette. There's really no warm tones in this eyeshadow palette. You definitely can still use this palette. This isn't to say that these are just wrong and bad palettes. I'm just explaining the difference on what you should shop for if you're a beginner, because this can be a bit tricky to use and get the non-muddy look with these, because you do have to use these shadows a bit sparingly and mix the right colors together for it to not look muddy. Another palette is, this is from the drugstore. You really can't do much with this, but all it has is more cool tones, so you may have a tough time with making this not look muddy. Another palette from the drugstore is this one right here. It does have this warm shade right here in the center, but these shades right here, if you use too much of it or if you don't have a smooth eyeshadow base, then those may look a little muddy. Now, a palette from the drugstore that is a bit of a mixture is the e.l.f. Mad for Matte. These shadows right here, these two are a bit more warm tone that you can use those in the crease and look really nice. But if you only use like these three, or really this half, you may get that muddy look. So now that we've gotten the examples out the way and what shadows that are warm and shadows that are cool tone, for this look, I'm going to be using this palette because it does have a mixture of kind of warm tones and then cool tones on that end. So I'm just going to use this on both eyes and show you how having an eyeshadow base and then the differences of blending and all of that kind of stuff, so you guys can pick up on what you may or may not be doing wrong. For the correct eye, I'm going to start with, I think, this shade right here and see how that looks on the eye. It's a bit more pinkish tone, has a bit more warmness to it. It's not the warmest shadow, but I'm gonna start with this and see how it looks. So when you start your eye looks, you want to always start with the transition color, and that may be the reason why your eyeshadows are not blending correctly. And for your transition color, you want to use a blending brush. Now, the blending brush can either be like a natural hair brush like this, at least I think this is natural hair, it looks like natural hair, and or a synthetic brush, but both of them, you want them to kind of taper into a fluffiness at the end. See how it starts right here at the base being skinny and then it flares out at the top? That's what you would consider a blending brush. Same way with this one, starts kind of skinny and then flares out. So starting with that eyeshadow, I'm going to blend this in the upper crease area of my eye and just make sure that I build up the shadow. And because I'm not using so much on my brush, I really just start in the crease. So if I was packing on my brush, I would say start wherever you want the most product, but not if you're tapping a little bit and then going into the crease. It really doesn't matter where you start. So use a little amount on the brush and tap off a little bit of the excess like this on the palettes, and then go into the crease and windshield wiper motions. And so yeah, that's your transition color. On this eye, I'm going to actually use something that's a little less warm tone and more of the cool tone look. So I'm gonna use this one right here and apply it in the same area. I'm also gonna use a brush that doesn't start small and flare out. I'm gonna use one that's pretty much the same thickness all the way through. And the reason why I chose this is because this eyeshadow brush actually reminds me of one of the first blending brushes I ever had. I got the sets from either TJ Maxx or Marshalls, and it was a no-name brand, and the eyeshadow, the blending brush that they had in there looked very similar to this. This isn't super ideal for a transition color. This you would use when you want to deepen up the outer V. It isn't so much used for a transition color. For transition colors, you want the brush to be less dense and more like fluffy, so you can really blend in that transition color. This is a little too dense and it's gonna apply the eyeshadow way too harsh. So this is gonna be this eye, and I'm going to use that darker shade. So when I apply this, it's like it's applying patchy. So it's applying in the crease, but it's a bit darker right here, and it's skipped right here, and now it's over here. And if you keep building it up, it's too dark for the upper crease area for like a normal eye look, and it's already starting to be muddy. And no matter how much I build up the shadow, you can almost still see that this piece right here is still patchy. So, okay, now I'm gonna try to fix that and go in with a little more shadow. And it just is too harsh and it's not what you want. You want it to start with a light color and then go in with darker shades. You don't want to go straight into a darker shade because it ends up looking muddy very, very quickly. Back to this eye, we have a nice eyeshadow base for the eyeshadows to glide on because we use that setting powder. We also have a really nice transition color, so all of the shades after this are going to blend really nice into it. So the next shadow that I'm going to use in my crease is this shadow right here. It's a bit darker than the first shadow we used, and it's going to layer really, really nice on this eye. So with the same blending brush, I'm going to go in with that shadow and blend in circular motions and connect it into the crease. Now I'm gonna go back into that first color that we used to kind of blend those edges just a little bit. Now back to this eye, I'm going to go in with the next darkest shade next to it and apply it pretty much the same way in my outer V and connect into the crease with the same brush. So my point of bringing up like this looks like my first eyeshadow brushes is if you're looking to get better at blending eyeshadows, the tools that you use are very important. If you're still using brushes that you don't think are performing really well, I definitely would say you should upgrade your brushes. Real Techniques brushes, you can buy those at Ulta, or Japanesque, you can buy those at Ulta, and they're really, really nice for blending. Or Sigma, you guys know I love Sigma brushes, but I would just say upgrade your brushes because that plays a big part into how your eyeshadow and everything, how your face makeup or eyeshadows are looking. So going in with the darker shadow, I'm going to apply this in the outer V and just blending it the best way I can into that other shade. And another thing is that if you have a sticky base and you apply too much of the shadow right here in this outer V and then try to blend it into the crease, it's not happening. And then it's like you can't go back at this point. You stuck with this. So starting small and gradually building up to a darker look really helps. You can already see that this eye is just muddy because I didn't use the proper base. I'm using cool tone shadows and I'm not using the right brush. This eye, we're gradually building it up. We're using the right base. We're using the right eyeshadow brush. Everything is just going right. This eye, I can see how frustrating this can be because it doesn't look like a tutorial. It looks muddy. It doesn't really look that bad, honestly, but it's muddy. And so you don't want this look. You want to just build it up slowly using the right base, the right brushes. So the next shadow we're going to use over here is this one right here. And I'm just going to build up this side. Another thing that also goes into eyeshadow brushes being purchased individually and not as a set that you would get at like TJ Maxx and Marshalls is that you can actually pick what kind of brushes you want to use. Eyeshadow set that you get at Marshalls, you really only have maybe 2 eyeshadow brushes. So you'll have something like this and then a lid brush to apply your eyeshadow shades. Well, if you go online, you go to Sigma or you go to Real Techniques or Japanesque, you can actually pick out the ones that you want. You have more variety of the type of eyeshadow brushes that you have. So now, because I'm using brushes that I can purchase individually and not as a set, I'm going to go in with the E25 brush, and it's more of a flat blending brush. And I'm using this because I want to focus it more so in the outer corner as well as blend. So I'm gonna press it flat and then I'm gonna turn the brush a little bit and blend it into the crease. So to make things a lot easier on the right side, you want to grab the eyeshadow that you want and then tap off the excess, so you still don't have a lot of shadow. So I'm just going to apply this here, turn the brush a little bit, and blend it into the crease. You see with this eye that it gradually is getting darker, so you can see the transition color, the second color, the third color. You can see the difference. Here it just kind of looks like you have one eyeshadow on even though you have 2. and it's muddy and it's not what you want. So over here, you're really just building up the intensity of this look, creating a nice smoky eye and making sure to blend those shadows together really seamlessly. And then as you saw with this eye, because I'm only using one blending brush, I can't go back with the previous brush and blend out the second shadow. So because I'm able to pick the brushes that I want, I can go back with the first brush and blend the edges with the lighter shades. This is going to create a really seamless blend, exactly what we want. Okay, so now we're done with this palette, and I'm going to move on to the lid shade. And I'm going to show you guys kind of a difference between a good drugstore shimmer and a not so good drugstore shimmer. This is the L'Oreal Infallible eyeshadows, and I think these are really, really great drugstore shimmers. They look really, really nice. The only thing is that you have to individually buy these. They don't come as a palette, and I know that can be something that you may not want to do if you're trying to look for the most inexpensive routes. If you want a different shade, then you have to purchase other colors. But if you want to get better at applying your eyeshadows, I would recommend buying a individual eyeshadow if that means that your eyeshadow shades will look a bit better. It lasts you for a pretty decent amount of time. So this is the eyeshadow I'm going to use on this eye. And for this eye, I'm going to use one that's found in an eyeshadow palette. This one in the Milani Earthy Elements palette. I'm going to use this one right here. And the reason why I picked that one is because it's kind of similar to this, but you're gonna see the amount of shimmer payoff that you get with this. So I'm basically saying it's worth getting an individual shadow like this. So here we go again with talking about brushes, on how if you purchase them individually, you're able to select which ones you want. So usually what comes in those sets is a brush like this, which is more of a natural hair brush. Now this brush is pretty good for a matte eyeshadow, but for shimmer shadows, it doesn't pick up as much as you would want it to. It picks it up, but you have to build it up a lot more to get the look that you want. Go into that shimmer and apply this on this side, and you can just see how that's not the shimmer that you're used to seeing. It's really not that much of the actual color. It's like a bunch of glitter, and there's not like a base shadow in this color. And that's what you're kind of gambling with if you go with just the shimmers in the palette. So that's what we got on this eye, and it's okay, but we had to build it up to this. It doesn't have a super pigmented base underneath it, so it kind of looks like shimmer, and this will kind of wear off throughout the day because we don't have a nice eyeshadow base underneath it. So for this eye, I'm going to use a flat brush from Sigma, and it's the F70. It's actually a concealer brush, but it's perfect for lid shades. And I'm going to use the L'Oreal Infallible shadow. Tap off the excess so we can prevent the fallout, and apply this all over the lid. You can already see a difference between this eye and that eye. This brush is a flat synthetic brush, so it really picks up the pigment. Okay, so this is how this eye is looking. So now I'm gonna go back in with this blending brush that we used to blend the darker shade and just blend the edges so that the shimmer shade seamlessly blends in. So I'm gonna take it a step further and kind of show you guys lash styles. So I only really know my eye shape, but I did see in my previous video, one of the other questions on my video was about picking eyelashes for eye shape. I'm going to leave a link down below to an article I found that explains it really, really well for your eye shape. So if you want help with choosing the right lashes for your eye shape, then I would definitely say read that article, and hopefully that helps. So, but I am going to do a little snippet of what works for me and what doesn't work for me if we have the same eye shape, because I kind of only know my eye shape. These are some lashes that I got from Eyelid. They are the 202 lashes. Now I can wear these, but I don't think they flatter my eye shape really well. So I'm going to use these on this eye, and I'm going to use the Ardell 600 lashes on this eye because I really like these. Because these taper off on both ends and they're longest in the center, it really brings out your eyes and makes them look more awake. So I applied the 202 lashes over here and then the 600 lashes over here. When I cover up just one eye, you can just see how this eye it looks more closed up, and the lash just hides all of the eyeshadow that we just put on. But this lash is very flirty, it's separated so you can still see the look, and it really complements my eyes and my eye shape. And then both of them together, you can see the difference. Another thing was that I blended in my real lashes in with these lashes with mascara. On this eye I didn't, so you can see my lashes right in there, and it just doesn't look as nice. I do have a full tutorial on how to apply lashes. It's really in depth, so if you need help with applying lashes, I'll have that video in one of these corners. And that is the end of this video. I hope this video was helpful. Let me know down in the comments if this helped you out. Thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure that you subscribe and thumbs up this video. And I promise I'll see you guys next time. Bye guys.